I'm sitting at my desk, staring at my computer screen, but my mind is racing. Since I started working at this company years ago, I have seen so much injustice and exploitation. Workers are treated as disposable parts, without any consideration for their well-being. I knew something needed to change, but I never imagined that I would be the one to take the first step. I pull out my cell phone and text Emily Johnson. She is a single mother, struggling to support her daughter, Emma. Emily and I became friends at work, and I know she shares my outrage at working conditions. Emily, I need to talk to you. Can it be at your house tonight? It's important. She quickly responds, of course, John. Come after dinner. I arrive at her house and am greeted with a tired but warm smile. We sit at the kitchen table, and Emily pours 2 cups of coffee. So what did you want to talk about, John? She asks, curious. Emily, I can't stand the way we are treated anymore. We need to do something. I thought about organizing a union. I say, watching his reaction. I see his eyes widen, but not in surprise. Are you serious? This is dangerous, John. Management won't like this at all. I know, Emily. But if we don't do anything, nothing will change. We need to fight for our rights. And I know you have the same concerns as me. Are you with me? She hesitates for a moment, but then I see determination dawn in her eyes. I'm with you, John. Let's do this. In the following days, we began to recruit more people to our cause. Michael Davis is a war veteran who works with us and has a reputation for being strong and fair. I decide to talk to him during the break. Michael, can I talk to you for a minute? I ask, approaching him near the coffee machine. Of course, John. What's going on? He responds with a smile. We're thinking about forming a union to fight for better working conditions. Emily and I are already in. What do you think? He looks thoughtful for a moment, but then nods. John, I'm with you. I've seen a lot wrong here, and it's time to do something about it. With Michael on board, we began organizing secret meetings. We found a safe place, away from the watchful eyes of management, and began to gain support among our coworkers. Each meeting is a mix of hope and fear, but the determination is palpable. One night during one of these meetings, Emily raises an important question. We need to be careful. If the administration finds out, they might try to stop us anyway. We need a solid plan and legal support. I agree with her and suggest that we look for someone who can help us with legal issues. I know an employment lawyer, Sarah. She could be a great ally. Emily's eyes light up at the idea. Let's talk to her, then. The more support we have, the better. And so, with Emily and Michael's help, we started to build something big. Each secret meeting, each whispered conversation in the company corridors, brings us closer to our goal. We know that the fight will be tough, that we will face many challenges, but we are determined to fight for justice and a better future for all of us. We're in this together, John. Says Michael, after a particularly productive meeting. Yes, Michael. We're together. And we won't stop until we get what's fair. I respond, feeling a wave of determination wash over me. The journey is just beginning, but with allies like Emily and Michael by my side, I know we have a real chance to make a difference. As the union organization progressed, I realized the increasing weight of the personal and professional challenges we faced. Emily, for example, was visibly exhausted. She was a single mother, taking care of little Emma, who, unfortunately, fell seriously ill during this troubled period. I remember one night in particular when Emily looked even more haggard than usual. We were in a secret meeting in the attic of Michael's house, lit only by a dim light bulb. Emily arrived late, with deep circles under her eyes and her eyes swollen from crying. Emily, are you okay? I asked, worried. She sighed deeply before responding. Emma is sick again, John. We went to the hospital and the doctors said she needs expensive treatment. I don't know how I'm going to pay the medical bills. The silence that followed was heavy. We knew that Emily was fighting not only for herself, but also for her daughter's future. Michael, who was also present, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Emily, you know we're here for you," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "Let's find a way to help." Michael, for his part, seemed to be fighting an internal battle. He was a war veteran and the traumas of the past began to manifest themselves again. One night, after a particularly tense meeting, he took me aside. "John, I need to talk to you," he said, his tone serious. "I've been having constant nightmares about the war. They're affecting me in ways I didn't expect. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing control." I looked at him, feeling the weight of his confession. "Michael, you are one of the pillars of this movement. I know it's hard, but we need you. Maybe we can find someone for you to talk to, a therapist, maybe." I don't know, John. I just don't want this to hurt the union. We're so close to achieving something big. I don't want to be a burden." "You will never be a burden, Michael. We are a team, and we will get through this together." These moments of vulnerability between the three of us strengthened our bond even more. Every day, it became clearer that our fight went beyond the simple search for better working conditions. We were fighting for our lives, for our families and for our future. Despite personal challenges, we continued to organize the union. Secret meetings became more frequent and we began to gain more support among coworkers. However, the tension increased every day. The company's management was starting to notice our activities and, inevitably, this brought more challenges. One night, after a particularly exhausting meeting, Emily took me aside again. "John, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. Between work, the union, and taking care of Emma, I'm feeling on the verge of a breakdown." "I understand, Emily. I know it's hard, but remember why we're doing this. It's for Emma, for us, for all workers who deserve fair treatment. And remember, we're not alone. We have each other, others." She nodded, although her eyes still reflected tiredness and concern. The fight was hard, but our determination was greater. We knew we were on the right path and that, together, we could face any adversity that came our way. And so, we continue. Every day was a battle, but each small victory gave us the strength we needed to move forward. Emily and Michael were more than allies, they were friends, comrades in struggle, and together, we were determined to achieve the justice we so desired. It was on a gray Tuesday morning that I began to notice signs that the company's management was aware of our activities. I arrived at work and found an anonymous letter stuffed in my locker. The paper was rough and the handwriting was hurried, but the message was clear and ominous: "We know what you're doing. Stop now or everyone will know." I held the letter tightly, feeling a chill run down my spine. I looked around to see if anyone was watching me, but everything seemed normal. That night, I gathered Emily and Michael in the small garage we used for our secret meetings. Emily was worried, with deep circles under her eyes from sleepless nights with Emma, her sick daughter. Michael, on the other hand, seemed even quieter than usual, his emotional scars from the war seeming more evident in the dim light. "I received this morning," he said, showing them the letter. Emily's eyes widened, and Michael frowned. "This is serious, John," Emily murmured, her voice shaking. "They know about us. What are we going to do?" "We can't give up now," I replied, trying to remain calm. "We've come too far. We need to be more careful, but keep fighting." Michael, in his ever-tough stance, added, "They want to intimidate us. We need to show that we won't give in. We need a plan to keep our meetings secret and make sure more people know what's going on." We spent the whole night discussing strategies. We decided to change the meeting location weekly and use codes to communicate. We also began recruiting more discreetly, approaching trusted employees one by one. It was risky, but we couldn't let fear paralyze us. Days later, while drinking coffee in the cafeteria, I overheard two supervisors talking. "They think they can organize themselves without us noticing. Little do they know what's coming," said one of them, laughing dismissively. This only increased my determination. We needed to be smarter than them. On a particularly cold night, Emily brought some worrying news. "John, I think they're following me," she said, her voice anxious. "Last night, when I left the factory, a car followed me home. I don't know what to do." I hugged her, trying to comfort her. "We will protect you, Emily. You are not alone in this. We will think of a way to ensure your safety." Michael suggested that we change our routes home regularly and that we always be accompanied by someone we trust. The tension was growing, but so was our solidarity. Despite threats and constant fear, we continued to organize. We managed to convince more colleagues to join us, and the flame of revolution began to spread. Every small victory gave us strength to continue. One afternoon, Emily, Michael, and I were having an impromptu meeting in the park when Emily got a call. "What?" "Emma, she's in the hospital," he said, his voice breaking. "I must go now." Michael and I exchanged worried looks. "Go, Emily. We've got you covered here," I said, trying to lighten her load. While she rushed to care for her daughter, Michael and I continued to plan. "They're playing dirty, John. We need something more," he said, with a determined gleam in his eyes. "We'll find a way," I replied. "We won't let them defeat us." Our meetings continued, and with each threat, each challenge, our determination only increased. We were fighting for something bigger than ourselves, and that gave us the strength to face any adversity. And so, even under the constant shadow of ruthless administration, our movement grew, driven by the hope of a more just future. When I met Sarah, I was in one of the most tense moments of my life. The pressures to organize the union were increasing, and each day seemed to bring a new challenge. Sarah came into my life as an employment lawyer with in-depth knowledge of workers' rights and union law. She was exactly what we needed. I remember our first date. We had arranged to meet at a discreet cafe in the city center, away from the watchful eyes of the company management. I arrived a few minutes early and was nervous, constantly fidgeting with the cup of coffee in front of me. "You must be John," said a soft but firm voice. I looked up to see a woman with light brown hair and determined eyes. She extended her hand with a sincere smile. "Yes, it's me." "And you must be Sarah," I replied, shaking her hand. After some formalities, we began to discuss what was bringing us there. She was direct and practical, which immediately impressed me. "John, I'm here because I believe in your cause. I know the fight won't be easy, but I'm willing to offer all the legal support necessary to ensure you get your rights," Sarah said, looking me in the eye. "This means a lot to us, Sarah." "We need all the help we can get," I replied, feeling immediate relief. As the days and weeks passed, Sarah became a fundamental part of our movement. She guided us on how to organize meetings without arousing suspicion, what documents we needed to formalize the union, and how to deal with the threats that were becoming increasingly frequent. "John, you need to be cautious. Management isn't going down without a fight," she warned me often. And she was right. On a particularly difficult night, after an exhausting meeting, Sarah and I decided to go to a nearby bar to relax for a bit. I was exhausted, and she also seemed to need a moment of rest. "Have you ever thought about how your life has changed since you started this fight?" I asked, curious about how she was dealing with all of this. "Sometimes I feel like I'm on a roller coaster, but honestly, I can't imagine being anywhere else right now," she replied with a smile. "What about you, John? How are you handling all this pressure?" "It's hard, but looking at people like Emily and Michael gives me strength. They have so much at stake, and I can't let them down," I replied, feeling a growing connection with Sarah. It was that night that I realized my feelings for Sarah were turning into something deeper. It wasn't just admiration for his professionalism and dedication, there was something more personal, more intimate. And, it seemed, she felt the same way. "We're in this together, John. And it's not just for the union," she said, placing her hand over mine. From that moment on, our relationship took an unexpected turn. Sarah and I began spending more time together, not only discussing union strategies but also getting to know each other on a more personal level. She told me about her life before becoming a lawyer, her aspirations and her fears. I did the same. This new dimension in our relationship brought new strength to our struggle. We knew we had each other to support no matter how difficult things got. And that personal connection kept us going, even when the situation seemed hopeless. "John, we're going to make it. No matter what happens, we're in this together," she told me one night, as we planned our next move against the administration. And so, love and camaraderie blossomed amidst the struggle. Sarah was not only a crucial ally in our battle, but she also became a vital part of my personal life. Our relationship gave us strength to continue, showing that, even in the most adverse situations, hope and love can find a way. The tension was at its peak. The feeling that there was a traitor among us was palpable, and I knew that if we didn't act quickly, all the effort and sacrifice made so far would be in vain. I, John Parker, had a huge responsibility on my shoulders. Emily, Michael, and I were willing to risk everything to ensure better working conditions and equal rights for all of our colleagues. But now, with the threat of an undercover informant, things were about to take an even more dangerous turn. One morning, while we were having coffee in the cafeteria, Emily approached with a worried look on her face. She had been called to the company boss's office, and the tension in her eyes was evident. "John, I need to talk to you." "In private," she said, pulling me to a more secluded corner. "Of course, Emily." "What happened?" I asked, trying to remain calm. "Earlier today, Mr. Thompson called me into his office. He offered money, a lot of money, for me to give him information about the union. He said I could use the money to take care of Emma, pay all of her medical bills." "John, I don't know what to do," she confessed, with tears in her eyes. I held his hands and took a deep breath. "Emily, I know the situation is difficult, especially with Emma sick. But if we take bribes, they will win. We need to stay strong. Please don't give up now," I pleaded. Emily looked at me for a long moment before slowly nodding. "You're right, John. I can't betray all of our colleagues for money. I'll refuse the offer," she said, determined. However, the informant's threat still hung over us like a shadow. We needed to find out who was betraying us before it was too late. That same night, we gathered the group in a secret location to discuss the situation. Michael, ever the strategist, suggested we try to bait the traitor with false information. "If we spread a rumor that we're going to meet at a specific location, we can see who shows up there and find out who the informant is," he suggested. "It's risky, but it could work," I agreed. "Let's do this." The next day, we started spreading false information that we were having a crucial meeting at the old abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. We all knew it was a trap, and we hoped the informant would take the bait. On the appointed night, Emily, Michael, Sarah, and I hid in the shadows, watching the factory entrance. It wasn't long before a car pulled up and one of our closest colleagues, James, got out of the vehicle. My heart sank when I saw him. James was someone we trusted, someone who was there for us from the beginning. "James, how could you?" I asked, stepping out of the shadows and confronting him. He turned around, surprised and visibly nervous. "John, I had no choice. They threatened me. They said that if I didn't help, I would lose my job and my family would suffer," he tried to justify himself. "We're all making sacrifices, James. But you put everyone at risk." "We can't trust you now," Michael said firmly. James lowered his head, knowing his actions had consequences. We knew we would need to move forward without him, but his betrayal gave us even more determination to continue our fight. Sarah's presence also proved crucial at this moment. She helped us document all threats and bribes from management, preparing us for any legal retaliation that might arise. Her support was invaluable, and my respect and admiration for her only grew. As we prepared for the big protest, we knew that the administration would not sit idly by. But we were more united than ever, ready to face any challenge. The fight was far from over, but together, we believed we could win. I clearly remember that day when Emily came to me, visibly shaken. We were in the company warehouse, where we used to hold our secret meetings. The environment was gloomy, and the boxes stacked around created a feeling of claustrophobia that perfectly reflected the tension that hung over us. "John, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice shaking slightly. I knew something was wrong. Emily was one of the strongest people I knew, always remaining calm even in the most difficult situations. "What happened, Emily?" I asked, trying to remain calm. She took a deep breath before continuing. "Today, the boss called me into his office. He offered money, John. A lot of money. Enough to cover all of Emma's medical expenses and have some left over." I could see the conflict in her eyes. Emma, her young daughter, had been sick for weeks, and the medical bills were piling up. I knew how difficult it was for Emily to balance her personal life and dedication to the union movement. The boss's proposal seemed tempting. "Emily, have you considered accepting?" I asked, trying not to show any judgment in my voice. She hesitated before answering. For a moment, yes. I thought about Emma, about the possibility of finally giving her the treatment she deserves without having to worry about the money. "But, John, I can't betray all of you. I can't betray what we're trying to build here." I felt a mixture of relief and pride. Emily was willing to sacrifice so much for our cause. "You made the right choice, Emily. We will find another way to help Emma. We are not alone in this." She nodded, but I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. I just don't know how much longer I can hold on. Emma needs help right now, and I feel like I'm failing as a mother." I approached her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're an amazing mom, Emily. And we're going to get through this together. We're not just fighting for better working conditions, we're fighting for a better future for our families." That conversation made me realize that we needed to take more drastic measures to protect the union and ensure that all our efforts were not in vain. I decided it was time to step up our strategy and seek more external support. The next day, I called a meeting with Sarah, the labor lawyer who had joined us and who, little by little, became more than just an ally in the cause. "Sarah, we need your help. The administration is pressuring Emily, trying to bribe her. We need a legal strategy to protect ourselves and continue our fight." She frowned, worried. "I understand, John. This is serious. We need to document everything and be prepared for any legal retaliation. I'll get to work on this immediately." While Sarah was busy with legal preparations, I dedicated myself to strengthening our ties with the workers. Michael, despite his own demons, was more determined than ever. "John, I can help organize more smaller protests, hand out leaflets and gain more support. We need to show that we won't back down." I agreed with him. "That's right, Michael. We need everyone on board. Let's show the administration that we are united and that we will not be intimidated." The following days were intense. We worked tirelessly, each of us dealing with our own personal challenges while staying focused on our mission. Emily, despite her worries about Emma, was more determined than ever, actively participating in meetings and helping to mobilize more colleagues. And so, with the help of Sarah, Michael, and all the other dedicated workers, we were able to strengthen our position. We knew that the fight was far from over, but with each obstacle overcome, our determination only grew. We were ready to face anything the administration threw at us because we knew we were fighting for what was fair. And most of all, we were fighting for a better future for our families. I clearly remember the moment I realized that Michael Davis was finally ready to face his inner demons. He has always been a recluse, carrying with him the weight of past traumas and memories of war. But there was something different about him that morning. As we gathered in Emily's small basement for another of our secret meetings, Michael stood up and, in a firm voice, said, "John, I think it's time for me to do more. I can't keep hiding behind the past. I want to lead an underground union cell." I was surprised, but also relieved. I knew that Michael had enormous potential to inspire and mobilize workers. He was respected by everyone and his life story deeply touched each of us. I encouraged him. "Michael, that would be amazing. We need more leaders like you. You can count on my full support. Michael, with a determined look, began organizing small protests and distributing leaflets that explained the injustices we were facing at the company. Every day, more and more workers joined our cause. The movement gained strength, and the hope for real change became more palpable. However, the company's management did not sit idly by. They began to implement repressive measures to try to silence us. Tension in the work environment has increased considerably. I remember a conversation I had with Emily while we were handing out flyers at the factory entrance. "John, I'm worried. The administration is stepping up surveillance. They put in new cameras and are monitoring our every move," Emily said, with a tone of concern in her voice. "I know, Emily. But we can't give up now. We are so close to achieving something big. We need to be more cautious and strategic," I replied, trying to remain calm. Michael, in turn, was not intimidated. He continued to lead with courage and determination, organizing small protests that caught everyone's attention. One day, during one of these actions, he stopped in the middle of the crowd and began to speak. "My friends, we cannot allow fear to dominate us. I fought a war to protect freedom and justice, and I will not let them oppress us here. Together, we are stronger than any repression." His fiery speeches and courageous actions inspired many workers to join the union movement. Even those who were hesitant began to see the importance of fighting for fair and dignified working conditions. But the administration did not back down. They began to intimidate workers, threatening dismissals and reprisals. Michael and I knew we needed to be even more careful. One night, after a particularly tense meeting, I sat down with Michael and Sarah to discuss our next steps. "John, we need to increase the security of our communications. They are getting more aggressive," warned Sarah, always attentive to legal and strategic details. "I agree, Sarah. Let's use safer methods to communicate and ensure our messages reach all workers without being intercepted," I replied, trying to find a solution. Michael, with a determined look, added, "And we will continue to mobilize. The administration may try to silence us, but they cannot silence the voices of all of us. We need to maintain focus and determination." The days that followed were tumultuous, but also full of hope. The strength that Michael demonstrated in facing his own fears was reflected in each of us. He became a true leader, someone everyone could trust. And, despite the administration's repressive measures, our movement only grew. The fight was far from over, but with Michael's leadership and the support of every worker, we knew we were on the right path. Justice would not be achieved without sacrifices, but we were willing to face them together. And it was this union that continued to guide us, even in the most difficult times. John, Sarah, Emily and Michael were in one of the most important meetings they had ever had. The atmosphere was charged with tension and expectation. The plan was to organize a massive protest that would force the administration to negotiate. The idea was simple, but the execution would be complex and risky. Sitting around the table in John's house, they discussed the last details. "We need to make sure every worker knows what's at stake," Sarah said, her voice firm and assured. "This protest is our chance to really change things." John nodded, but there was concern evident on his face. "I agree, Sarah, but since we found out about the informant, I feel like we need to be even more cautious. We can't afford to make mistakes now." Emily, who was next to Michael, took a deep breath before speaking. "I know we are all nervous, but we can't let fear paralyze us. I've seen what the future holds for my daughter if we don't fight now. Emma deserves a better future." Michael, always the quietest of the group, finally intervened. "We need to be strategic. Disseminate leaflets, use social media, and ensure the media is present. The more visibility we have, the less chance the administration will repress us violently." With everyone in agreement, they began to draw up the detailed plan. Sarah, with her legal knowledge, helped ensure that all actions were within the bounds of the law, minimizing the risk of legal reprisals. During preparations, John received devastating information. Matthew, one of his closest colleagues and one he trusted completely, was the informant. The news was a hard blow. John felt betrayed and helpless, but he knew he couldn't let that stop the movement. "I can't believe Matthew would do that," said a visibly shaken John as he spoke to Sarah on the phone. "He was always there for us." Sarah tried to reassure him. "John, I know it's difficult, but we need to move forward. The movement is bigger than any of us. We'll deal with Matthew after the protest. Right now, our priority is to make sure everything goes smoothly." John agreed, but the pain of betrayal was still palpable. He gathered the group and, looking solemn, revealed the truth about Matthew. Emily and Michael were shocked, but also determined not to let this interfere with their plan. "It hurts to know that someone so close to us betrayed us," Emily said, "but it only makes me want to fight more. We can't let the administration win." Michael, who had always been a rock of support, placed his hand on John's shoulder. "Let's move forward, John. We're all in this together." The day of the protest arrived, and the tension in the air was almost tangible. Workers from all sectors of the company began to gather at the agreed location. Sarah was by John's side, offering support and guidance. Emily and Michael were on the front lines, handing out flyers and encouraging colleagues to join the cause. The protest quickly gained momentum, attracting local media attention. Reporters and cameras were everywhere, capturing every moment. John, with a megaphone in hand, stood on a small makeshift stage. "Today, we are here to show the administration that we will no longer be exploited," he said, his voice echoing through the room. "We are here to fight for our rights and for a better future for all of us." The crowd cheered and shouted in support. The pressure on management was immense, and company representatives soon appeared to negotiate. John, Sarah, Emily, and Michael met with them, prepared to defend their demands. Negotiations were tense and prolonged, but eventually the administration relented. Significant achievements have been made, including wage increases, better working conditions, and additional rights for workers. As they celebrated their victory, John couldn't help but think about Matthew and the betrayal that almost dismantled them. But looking at his friends and co-workers, he knew they had done the right thing. "We did it," Sarah said, smiling at John. "We made history today." "Yes, we did," replied John, with a tired but satisfied smile. And that's just the beginning. The massive protest was scheduled for a Thursday morning, and the tension in the air was palpable. "I woke up early that day, my heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Sarah was by my side, giving me strength. John, today is the day. We made it this far. It's going to be okay," she said, holding my hand firmly. We arrived at the agreed location, a large courtyard that was in front of the company's headquarters. Little by little, workers began to gather, many of them with posters and banners demanding better working conditions and equal rights. Emily was there, with a determined look on her face, and Michael, ever vigilant, seemed ready for any eventuality. "Emily, how is Emma?" I asked, worried. "She's better, John, thanks for asking. But today isn't about me or her, it's about all of us," Emily replied, her eyes shining with determination. The sun hadn't even fully risen yet when the protest began to gain momentum. The workers' voices joined together in a powerful chorus, echoing into the morning. It was impossible to ignore the massive presence of everyone gathered there, and soon the media began to arrive, attracted by the magnitude of the event. "We need an official statement, John," Sarah said, as she adjusted her glasses and looked at the television cameras preparing to go live. I took a deep breath and climbed onto a small makeshift platform. "Today we are here to demand what is rightfully ours. We are not asking for favors, we are demanding justice. United, we are strong, and today we will show the administration that they cannot ignore us." The crowd cheered and shouted in support. It was an indescribable feeling to see so many colleagues united for a common cause. Suddenly, an administration representative appeared, accompanied by security guards. "Mr. Parker, we need to talk," he said, with an expression of discomfort. "We're here to negotiate, but we won't accept anything less than what we're asking," I replied firmly. We were taken to an improvised meeting room inside the company. Sarah, Emily, Michael and I sat at the table, while on the other side were the management representative and some company lawyers. The tension was palpable. "We are willing to discuss, but you need to understand that we cannot meet all demands immediately," the representative began. "We're not here to hear excuses," Sarah interrupted, her voice firm and authoritative. "We want a clear commitment and defined deadlines for implementing the changes. And we won't leave here until we achieve that." The negotiation was long and exhausting. Hours passed, and the tension only increased. However, the presence of the media and pressure from workers abroad caused the administration to give in on several important points. "We are going to grant a salary increase, improve working conditions and implement a fairer benefits system," the representative finally said, with an expression of resignation. When we left the meeting room, the crowd was still there, anxiously awaiting news. I stepped back onto the platform and announced, "We did it. They gave in to our demands. This is a victory for all of us." The celebration was intense. Hugs, tears of joy and smiles spread among the workers. Emily hugged me tightly, and Michael, always restrained, gave a satisfied smile. Sarah pulled me aside and kissed me, a gesture that sealed not only our victory but also our commitment to each other. "This is just the beginning, John. We have a lot of work ahead of us to make sure all the promises are kept," she said, looking deeply into my eyes. "I know, Sarah. But today, let's celebrate." "Today, we are victorious," I replied, feeling a wave of relief and happiness. That day marked the beginning of a new era in the company. Management was forced to negotiate, and we achieved significant improvements in working conditions and workers' rights. Victory seemed within reach, and the team celebrated their success while planning their next steps to solidify their achievements. The fight wasn't over yet, but at that moment, we felt that anything was possible. The fight seemed to have been won. The massive protest had been a success, and the administration, pressured by the media and popular support, was forced to negotiate. Significant improvements in working conditions and workers' rights have been achieved. The feeling of victory was palpable, and I, John Parker, felt a mixture of relief and pride. But, as they always say, the calm precedes the storm. One afternoon, while reviewing some documents in the union's makeshift office, I received a message from Sarah. "We need to talk." "Urgent," the text said. Something about his tone made me uneasy. Sarah wasn't one to panic easily. "We meet at a discreet cafe on the other side of town." Sarah was visibly tense. "John, I've discovered something terrible," she began, bluntly. "The head of the company, Mr. Thompson, is planning to retaliate brutally. He wants to frame us." I was shocked. "What do you mean, incriminate us?" "What is he planning?" I asked, trying to remain calm. Sarah took a deep breath before continuing. "He set up a scheme to make it appear that we embezzled company funds to finance the union. If he succeeds, not only will we lose everything we have achieved, but we could also be arrested." The news hit me like a punch in the stomach. "This is crazy. We need evidence to unmask him. We can't let him do this." "I'm already working on it," Sarah replied, determined. "I have some contacts in the press and some leads that could lead us to the evidence we need." We returned to our makeshift office, where Emily and Michael were waiting for us. "We need to tell them," Sarah said. I explained the situation to Emily and Michael, who were as shocked as I was. "We can't let him destroy everything we fought for," Emily said, her eyes shining with anger and determination. "And how are we going to do that?" asked Michael. "We need a plan." We spent the night coming up with strategies and trying to track Mr. Thompson's movements. Sarah was tireless, using her cool skills to follow the clues. It was an exhausting week, but we finally got the evidence we needed: emails, suspicious bank transactions, and testimony linking Mr. Thompson to illicit activities. With everything in hand, we contacted the media. Sarah reached out to her press contacts, and within days, the story was in every newspaper and on the news. The pressure on the company increased exponentially. It was time to act. The next morning, while we were gathered in the office, we received a call from the police department. Mr. Thompson had been arrested for corruption and illegal practices. The news was met with a mix of relief and celebration. "We did it," said Sarah, exhausted but with a smile of victory on her face. Emily, who had fought tirelessly for a better future for her daughter, could not hold back her tears. "This is for Emma," she said emotionally. Michael, for his part, seemed to have found a new peace. Finally, a battle we won together. The company, now under new management, was forced to implement all the promised changes. We were exonerated of all charges, and justice prevailed. I received a promotion and public recognition for my courage and leadership. The union we formed continued to grow and fight for a fair and equal work environment. In the end, our victory was more than professional. It was personal. Each of us has overcome unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger. We celebrate not only Mr. Thompson's fall, but also the resilience and unity that got us there. What about Sarah and me? Our unexpected romance blossomed even further, fueled by the adversities we faced together. Looking at everything we had achieved, I knew the fight was worth it. And that, together, we could face any challenge that came our way. Our story of struggle and overcoming has become an example for many. And for me, John Parker, the real victory was knowing that, in the end, justice truly prevailed.